Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay. On Monday, Christopher Wray was confirmed as the new head of the FBI. Now joining us to talk about this appointment is James Henry. James is an investigative economist, a lawyer, and global justice fellow at Yale. He's also a senior advisor to the Tax Justice Network. Thanks for joining us, James.
You're quite welcome.
So, James, the appointment was pretty overwhelming, 92-5, I think it was. The vote in the Senate to confirm him. So what do we know about Mr. Wray?
Well, he's a very patrician FBI director. He, is by far the most Wall Street-oriented lawyer that we've ever seen in that post. He has no law enforcement experience. The Senate confirmation hearings were really very thin. Didn't really get into his background. The main point about Wray is that he spent the last 12 years, or sort of 70% of his professional legal career, defending white-collar corporations and banks. I mean, among his banks that he's defended are major serial offenders like HSBC, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank.
All banks that were accused of fraud, and many wound up paying massive fines and were involved in a lot of out-and-out shenanigans.
I added up the top felonies and settlements for the top 22 banks in the world from 2000 to 2015. It's something like 655 offenses. Credit Suisse committed 35 of them. HSBC was also way at the top of the list. And I first encountered Wray in the context of the 2014 Credit Suisse deal, where he negotiated a very kind of a sweetheart settlement with the Department of Justice. Credit Suisse had been involved in laundering money and helping assist tax evasion for 22,000 wealthy Americans, taking money out of the country, more than $20 billion that we know of. Over a 2-decade period, they got off with a tax-deductible fine of $2.5 billion. Nobody went to jail. They didn't lose any operating licenses, and this is all due to Christopher Wray's, good offices working with the Justice Department. He's worked very closely with people like Eric Holder and, Loretta Lynch in his career at the Justice Department in the past, even though he was a Bush administration appointee. And I think it's just kind of outrageous that this fellow is now, moved from being the key attorney for leading Swiss laundry bank to being the FBI director.
Well, I guess one argument could be, given how well he knows how to do laundry, he'll be a good investigator of the banking sector as head of the FBI.
I mean, that's always the last resort, Joe Kennedy type defense. FDR appointed Joe Kennedy to be head of the SEC because he said he knew all the games. I don't think there's any evidence that Chris Wray is going to be a militant defender of widows and orphans, going after the people who have gotten, who are victims of the mortgage frauds or the sanctions busting or the tax dodging that helps the rich. He's lived a very comfortable life, creme de la creme. His father was a lawyer, his uncle was a lawyer, grandfather and grandfather were Wall Street lawyers. So this is kind of the crowd that he's used to and the interest that he will probably feel most comfortable serving.
Now, is the FBI continuing their own investigation of the Trump campaign, or is this all in Mueller's camp right now? And in this appointment, does Trump think he has someone that won't be going after him? I mean, in theory, the thing we talked about in our other interview of going after some of the financial shenanigans and fraud, you'd think that could still be pursued by the FBI and that he would know Wray something about all this.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Trump is playing this game that carefully. I mean, he's taking one hole at a time here. He knew he had to get rid of Comey because Comey was going after him on some of this stuff, and he was trying to find somebody who could, pass muster with both parties and also be a little bit more controllable. But Wray is a Republican. He served in the Bush administration. He didn't protest very loudly when there were all these memorandum being memoranda being written about enemy combatants and Guantanamo torture techniques. He didn't resign over that. He supervised the Enron investigation, which, in retrospect, a lot of the big cases there, like Arthur Anderson, were reversed on appeal. But all of that has been forgotten. So, I think Trump is basically playing this by ear, and he'll see what Wray does. As I said, there's no evidence that this is a fellow who is going to be a militant defender of civil liberties or an aggressive investigator of white-collar crime.
Thanks for joining us, James.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.